the winners will be praising him and the losers will be castigating him.
Wait, I wanted to capture that. You said we don't know what Trump is doing, and what his end goal is any more than we know
Yeah,
how to decolonize our minds. And
exactly.
that made me think, right? We don't know how to decolonize our minds as far as what the next step is any more than they know what the next step is in their imperialism.
Exactly. My point was the fact that we do not know how to decolonize it, and that is not our fault. It is not knowable. It is like how we defined development. We used to define development in terms of being like the West, but being like the West was a moving target. Every time we were near where they were yesterday, tomorrow there will be a different place.
So that's the moving target, but trying to decolonize the mind is essentially trying to restore a state that's in the past, which is impossible.
Exactly.
So rather
Imagine
than decolonize
going
the mind,
forward.
wouldn't we then have to adapt to now? So it's not actually about decolonizing the mind, but about um reshaping the mind to adaptation for the future and not trying to undo the past.
It is exactly like using the side mirror to drive. Knowing the faster you go and the further you go, the object that you knew how they are now blurred. They are mirages. So now you start getting frustrated and afraid of going further because you can't see what you knew. Then you end up in a place where you do not know where you are and you do not know where you are going and you have no idea how far where you started is. And that is a very, very bad scenario
Hmm.
because when you can't go forward, you start imagining how far backwards is. So you
Wow.
start now saying, let me just drive forward because I can't get back from where I came from. You know how far it is.
So
And that
we
is what decolonization of the mind is.
so decolonization of the mind is actually the first step is to actually stop thinking of it in that frame because
Yeah, exactly.
I see. And
Because now
wow.
when you set a target that you do not know how it looks like, even if you got it, you wouldn't recognize it.
Wow.
What is it that we want to achieve with that decolonization of the mind?
Right.
Let's make that the target.
Right.
What are the objectives of that? So that when we get that objective, we say, even if we didn't decolonize the mind, but we have this objective that was part of what we wanted to get with it. So that after we've achieved a number of objectives, we can say whether or not we have decolonized our minds, but we are in a place where we can say the mind is not as colonized.
Wow. That's powerful. That's powerful. So this is more about moving forward than trying to restore the past.
Exactly. It is
Hmm.
about moving forward. And it is not just about moving forward, it is embracing the forward direction when you are on a vehicle that is moving forward.
Yeah, because it's moving forward regardless of whether we embrace it or not.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
now to do anything else about it, you must now create enough resistance. And you are not even sure that you have the power to even slow it down, leave alone reversing the course.
Hmm. Hmm.
Can you steer this vehicle now to a direction that is intended?
Wow. That that so in essence, actually, then the Sahel states are probably the most decolonized because they're trying to move forward in general. They're just worried about moving forward. They're not worried about anything other than forward march.
Because everybody who talks about decolonization
Hmm.
always thinks of a past. And that past has been so glorified and romanticized
That we
that even
forget
when it
even the
had all
troubles
these
of it.
plagues,
Yeah.
even when it had all these plagues that we have controlled,
Yeah.
people think if they had given an option of those plagues and the problems of today, many of them will say, give me those plagues because they are so distant.
Right.
So nobody seems to see the progress we've made because of that colonized mind.
Mm. Even just the collateral benefits that came from all of the turmoil, because you
Mhm,
know, a lot of turmoil sometimes breeds innovation that helps us as a collective whole, right?
mhm,
And even if the outcome wasn't intended, right, it still ended up having some benefits, right? And we can't discount those some benefits, that and these benefits may not be attributed to colonization and may just be attributed to time, right?
exactly. Or even the dangers might not have been as a result of that. Let's say now, in another 100 years, if now Trump's action leads to the decay of America as a superpower,
Hmm.
wouldn't it be just internal dynamics just decaying the system?
Wow.
So our empires, our civilizations could have had its own internal matters that and internal issues that led to their decay, irrespective of, and they would have decayed irrespective of whether there was colonialism or not.
Yeah, no civilization is conquered from the outside until it first destroys itself from within.
Exactly. When we know that, why do we keep on blaming colonialism? Probably we were colonized when we were had already started decaying.
Mm.
And these are cycles. If in the 19th century people would have said that the British Empire, the sun would set in the British Empire to an extent that it doesn't even rise in Ireland, people would have said you are crazy. But the sun never rises, leave alone setting, never rises in Ireland, the neighborhood of the British Empire. Now, 50 years ago, if Americans had been told that every president will be making a speech and mentioning the threat of China 20, 30 times in an hour, they would have said you are crazy. And they have not even gone to war with China.
Wow. So what you're saying is we have so much judgment for ourselves, even though
Exactly.
the rest of the world is going through the exact same
The
process.
exact
Right.
things.
Right.
And it is the people who are intellectually lazy like yourself and your generation
Yeah.
that is not seeing this.
Hmm.
And that is, I don't know why you keep on forgetting this. I tell you, before you open your mouth to make judgment about anything, understand its conditions. Understand why now preferred to fight on the side of the government when he had 8 children, rather than going to the forest to be with the Mau Mau. And see where it is. The Mau Mau are still waiting for the free land. Now's grandchild, who is Victor, has no idea why I should be fighting for a forest in Rift Valley when I can come to America and enjoy the American dream.
Hmm.
Given a choice between having 3 acres and the opportunity to come to America, which one would you have chosen?
Hmm. Wow.
So sometimes we operate and philosophize as if that choice was not just a normal decision that a rational decision maker made, weighing all the options that he had, made a decision that competing, even though the rules are set by the colonialists, being more competitive in that game by those rules will get me out better, will make me feed my family better, will make me live longer, will preserve my family.
Right. Right. And that, man, that is exactly correct. Because also we're looking at this from a perspective of a unified, homogenous group, but everybody also has their own respective individual issues that come into play for all these nationalist, problems. Everybody has their own individual pieces to them, right? And those individual ones are even more numerous than nation states. And so what this is really showing me is that ultimately politics is complex due to the nature of the infinite amount of problems that an individual can face throughout a lifetime, right?
And
um
interests
and interests,
that they
right,
want to
right, right,
pursue.
that they want to pursue for whatever reason. For whatever reason. And so, trying to
Think of the US society.
mhm,
Think of it as the melting pot in terms of all the diversity, but see how all that diversity disappears during national elections. You get only 3, 4 issues that unite or divide people: abortion, social security, Medicare, and life. Now the position of religion is coming in, and you find everybody, irrespective of what color they are, what wealth status they are, their social standing, they all have strong feelings about these 4 or 5 issues
yeah.
and determine everything. But in Africa, you still just want to reduce them to a tribe.
Wow. Wow, that's very powerful, man. I really pray that over time I can release some of my most of my if not all of my my academic judgment, and even just my judgment in general for how certain decisions are made, especially because again it's easy to say that from reaping the benefits of a system that I've been at the relative top of for a lot of my life. And that's the thing, is the funny thing is even when you're raised in the bottom of America, right? A lot of times we forget that that's still the top of the world, right? We
You
forget
remember you
we
remember
forget that
you
that's
used to
still the top
accuse
of the
me
world.
of you remember you used to accuse me of not making my position clear.
Hmm.
But my position has always been clear. The thing is, you want me to be fixed in one place, yet I want to be on the mountain to see all these people downstairs. And I'm telling you, when you do this, you'll be opposed by those ones there because they want water. Those ones who are experiencing a flood, they want the water gone. Those who are harvesting do not need any rain. Those who are planting want a lot of rain. And unless you see those people as interests, you cannot understand them. Because the same person who wanted rain during planting time doesn't want rain at all during harvest time. And unless you can understand their interests at any one time, you are likely to group them together. And then people who wanted rain and supported you during planting, you find they are opposed to you because they are harvesting, and you start wondering, why were you lying to me that you want rain? They weren't lying to you. That time they wanted rain. Now they want something different. And that is the nature of interests. They change.
Wow.
But what you keep on telling us is something that can never change, called a tribe. But everybody, even when they belong to a tribe, they still have interests. Those are the interests you need to isolate to be able to understand them.
Understand. Understand.
And that is why I don't agree with anybody who comes with a thing called colonialism, with a thing called tribalism, with a thing called religion. No. It is the way those things are processed in their brain and what the outcome poses for them that is of interest. As I used to tell my students, it is not the environment that is important. It is the psychological image of that environment that is most important.
Right.
When they see this, what do they process it to be? What do they see? There is what they are looking at, but what are they seeing? What is the image they are forming?
So essentially, would you say then power and leadership is about understanding your people and their perspective in their worldview, in addition to what interests they have in this current moment?
Exactly, at every moment. And that is why, if you have observed these stupid liberals, the Megumi type, they go on strike, they go to demonstrate against cruelty to chicken and come to demonstrate there is no chicken in the supermarket. And they are not seeing
The
that
connection.
process they are calling cruelty is how that commodity, that basic commodity called meat, reaches the shelves.
Right.
There is no other way of having chicken other than cutting the neck and removing the feathers.
Right.
And the easiest way of removing feathers is putting it under very hot water. The feathers come out.
And that's very true, because I notice so many of us are so anti-capitalism, but are the largest consumers, right? Whether it be with
Exactly.
style, whether it be with clothing,
Exactly.
whether it be with, internet, lights, you name it. Everyone hates capitalism, but only as long as they're tweeting it from their capitalistic, home, right? And then
The only
wow.
time I pissed off, the only time I deliberately pissed off ladies, what I did, they were psychologically profiling men and telling men how they are struggling so hard to get old, not get old. They are dyeing their hair. And I called the women who are in the podium and I embarrassed them. I said, the woman who has the natural hair, let them sit down. None sat. Men have not done that. Men at least you have their hair. I said, men might have dyed their hair, but they still have their natural hair. The woman who has natural nails can go and sit down. Only two did. The woman who doesn't have a bra that is tight, that has a wire to hold their boobs from sagging, let them go and sit down. And I asked them, why don't you want your boobs to sag? Why don't you want your edge to show? At least your boobs are hidden. If you had a bald head like us, you wouldn't even show yours. You would go to whatever lengths to get a wig to cover it. But you're only looking at men who are trying to be young, who are pretending to be young to attract younger girls. People who are exactly sailing in exactly the same boat, reacting exactly the same way, but one is seeing and impugning so negative things about the other's reactions, yet they are doing way more than that. They told me to sit down before I completed because they had already seen my point. These are some of the things that I don't want you to make. It is way beyond just the pot calling the kettle black.